Third part. Hey, no freaking way. You should have said that before we left. While Meg was at the stern, expertly working the rudder, the young deputy had a strange look in his eye as he stared at her arms. To say nothing of the waist and legs that supported her, and seemed several times stronger than they'd appeared on dry land. At any rate, with the half-dozen men also aboard, the small craft was nimbly cutting across the waves, at times with the current and at others against it. If it were a person, you'd say it had a nice, steady gait. Stunned by the girl's ridiculous proposal, the sheriff had asked if she could even row, to which Meg replied she'd been putting to sea and helping her father with his fishing since the age of 7. Even now she was confident she was better than boys her age. The sheriff had shaken his head and said no to taking a woman along, but Gargon had suggested they could send her back as soon as they reached the island. Meg was the very first to support him. Just to be clear on the matter, the lawman asked her if she swore to do it, and naturally the girl replied in the affirmative. In truth, she had no intention whatsoever of going back. Her parents and her little sister had gone off to an island where the nobility roamed, after all. In addition to the men, the boat was packed with food and water, enough for 2 days, and medicine, and 2 hours later the small craft headed out into the bay with the water almost up to its gunwales. The elderly deputy who'd been left behind to carry word back to Pearson soon faded from view. When the mainland vanished an hour out, even the sheriff thought anxiously that these currents were incredible. The boat was borne on a current reaching speeds of 20 knots, and a girl of 17 was not only challenging that current, she was mastering it. It was small wonder that the young deputy couldn't help but let his honest impressions slip out. "We'll be there in 30 minutes, said the girl. Your weapons and head good to go?" "More or less," a youthful face replied with a sigh, giving Meg a long look and a smile. The reason she'd asked was because she was thinking to herself, will this kid be able to hold his own on an island with nobles? "I'm Meg, and you are?" No sooner had she asked that than the sheriff, standing at the prow, called out, "Wesley, we're within sight of the island. Don't forget to prep for our landing now." "Yes, sir." "Wesley." Once again his name had been called, and this time it was Meg. "You look a lot like the sheriff," she continued. "Is he, by any chance, my father?" he said, nearly spitting the words. "Oh, really? So you're following in your dad's footsteps? Aren't you the dutiful son?" "I'm not a deputy by choice. See, he was short-handed." There was no hostility in Wesley's answer because Meg's tone had been entirely sincere. Getting up, he turned his gaze forward to find a little hump of an island on the horizon. The fear and horror the boy's voice carried made Meg tense up. Soon they'd be dealing with the nobility, and those who'd once been their victims, or their descendants. Just then, the youngest bounty hunter deftly made his way across the rocking boat to the pair. Making no attempt to hide his vulgar smirk, he said, "My, aren't the two of you chummy? Can I be your friend too?" He couldn't have been any older than Wesley. "Not a chance," Meg said flatly. Why not?" he asked with feigned ignorance, but his eyes shone with a dangerous gleam. "Because ever since you got to the village you haven't taken your eyes off my chest and butt. You're such a pig. As Meg had reprimanded him loudly and without a hint of restraint, the bounty hunters in the middle of the craft let out delighted whoops. The young man's face flushed crimson, and murderous intent filled him from head to toe. For those who lived on the field of battle, a public tongue-lashing could be considered the greatest insult. If they couldn't reassert their honor right there and then, they'd have no leg to stand on the next day. Meg was well aware of that, but had been merciless with him nonetheless, because he'd had such a lecherous look in his eye. However, the instant Meg saw the young bounty hunter's hand go for the machete on his hip, her expression froze. It was no exaggeration to say killing lust radiated from the young man. "Knock it off," Wesley said, standing between the two of them. "You want to try stopping me, lover boy?" said the young bounty hunter. "Don't kid yourself. You act like you've never heard of Bo the Bowman before." That knocked the wind out of Meg. She'd had her suspicions since she first saw his bow, but never would have imagined he was really that young. They said he could fire an arrow that would punch through a demon bird soaring 1,000 yards off the ground, and he was so quick that in a second he'd taken down 10 bandits, putting an arrow through the right eye of each. At a range of 100 yards, he'd taken on 100 charging outlaws mad for blood, slaying the last with just 3 feet to go, and ensuring that his consummate skill was already the stuff of legend. Meg got the impression Wesley and the badge on his chest were swiftly fading away like mist. But then the girl heard someone say, "Never heard of you." That was Wesley's reply. The young deputy's right hand was going for the pistol on his hip. "Nice, fight, fight," the bounty hunter nearest the 3 of them chanted, pounding the butt of his short spear against the bottom of the boat and getting to his feet. "A bounty hunter and a lawman fighting over a gal? This won't be done till we've seen some blood. Neither of you better pull out. Go on at it." He was licking his jaw. From the look in their eyes, Wesley didn't have a prayer of winning. Knowing that, he still held his ground due to the inherent hatred of wrongdoers shared by those on the side of the law. "Shut your trap," the Bowman snarled. The naked malice in his tone showed he played right into his compatriots' hands. "Wesley, Bo, settle down, both of you," the sheriff commanded from the prow. "This seemed like any time to be fighting among yourselves. Bo, anything happens to my deputy and you won't see a lousy dollar." There was no reply. The young man called Bo was so lathered up for a fight, there'd be no stopping him now. The sheriff's right hand went for his gun, and at the same time, the 2 bounty hunters gripped their weapons as well. A fight between the young bucks was turning into a proxy war, splitting them along job and character lines. It could no longer be averted. Both the sheriff and Meg felt it. A cry of surprise had escaped the sheriff. It was a heartbeat later that not only his form, but the entire boat was engulfed by something white billowing up from behind them. "It's fog," Gargon exclaimed, his voice quavering violently. The sea had suddenly gone mad. Waves bared white fangs and slammed the boat broadside. "This is some serious shit. Hey, do something, helmsman." "This can't be," Meg said, squeezing the words out in what was nearly a scream. "The tides don't just go nuts like this. No way. It's been rough, but we've managed to get this far because they were running the same as always. Hold on tight, everyone. Fall in the sea and you're a goner. And the sheriff shouted, his voice, too, shaking badly. What the hell is this? The wind ain't even blowing. And the sun shining away like nobody's business. This ain't normal stormy weather. The seas had erupted madly despite sunny skies and a lack of wind. Swells were reaching 10 feet now, and if the 15-foot-long craft couldn't adjust to the changed conditions, it was only a matter of time before it would be reduced to so much flotsam. Though she'd experienced rough seas more times than she could count, now waves rose on all sides of the boat, falling on it with the force of some bizarre beast, and leaving Meg slumped over the rudder and barely conscious. The sheriff and the roughnecks could no longer even find voice enough to shout at her, but it didn't take long for all that to give way to cries of astonishment and delight. The fog's gone. The waves have settled down too, it's calm. As she felt the pitching and rolling quickly fade, Meg turned her face forward from where she clung to the rudder. Already calmed, the surface glittered in the sunlight, while far off across the water the shape of a tiny boat became visible. What's that? As proof that Meg hadn't been the only one to spot it, someone to the fore called it, "It's a boat. One a lot smaller than ours. So how's it going so fast?" Manning the helm is just one person. Some guy in black. Meg strained her eyes for all she was worth. It's him, she thought. It has to be that gorgeous fella I saw up on the cliffs. However, when her eyes finally focused on the point in question, the little boat and the figure were rapidly pulling away, and they swiftly melted into vast expanse of sea. I don't believe it. When I spotted him, it was that small. To get that far in less than 5 minutes. The sheriff's words sounded like delirium, and in her heart of hearts Meg was shaking her head vehemently. You say you don't believe it, but that's a lie, she thought. He, of all people, could do it. I mean, just look at how beautiful he is. But a voice cut into the girl's rapturous thoughts like the teeth of a beast. In that boat just now, was that another bounty hunter? If it is, it's a hell of a good one. Hey, hurry it up, baby. Don't want him getting the jump on us. But to be able to work a rudder like that, who the hell is he? Seemingly unconcerned with the voices that rose like bubbles to the surface, the sheriff was concentrating on a different question. Those sudden killer waves just now, had they been calmed by the master of the now vanished boat? He had no reason to think that. No. Actually, there was one. Though it was at a great distance and only for a second, the sheriff had seen the face of the man helming the little boat. Not only were his features indistinct, but his very outline had been a blur. Still, the lawman's readiness had been emblazoned with it. That one, granted instant, had been like an eternity, and in it, he had been witness to beauty itself. Chapter 1, End.